All right, in today's episode, we're going to talk about building a data science team in a company. So you might be in the company, you might be the owner of the company. How do you go about building a data science team? Now, before we get to that, very quick question for you, Dr. Lau, right? What are some ways you've seen companies, small or large, medium, use data science to their advantage?
Well, when I look at you, Ruben, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is web analytics, right?
Yeah.
Use data like Google Analytics or your MailChimp. So if you're using a CRM, you can look at your email open rate and then how many people actually click on the links. This is the most straightforward and intuitive way to use data when you are sending newsletter. And then if you look at your web analytics, you can look at how many people visited your site, how long they stay at your site, and then how much time they spend before they bounce off to another page, or they exited your site, go to another website, or did they actually browse, let's say an e-commerce store, right? They browse an item for 2 minutes, but they did not buy. What are the reasons? So there are a lot of ways and a lot of insights that data actually telling us, and I think all companies should actually, no matter what size you are, should make it to a good use.
I think in terms of me as a marketer, right, I used to use a lot of web analytics only, but right now we have begun to use and combine all sorts of different data sets.
Yeah.
You know, like web analytics is one. We have e-commerce. We have
Social media
analytics, SEO, search analytics, and all these come into here. Trend analytics all into one to identify what are some insights we can take and use to build our business to the next level.
Yep.
So, obviously, every company needs to build a data science team or people to actually go into the analytics and look at what is inside the company and how to propel it forward, right? Now, for a company, what is the first hire they should do, or they should go and hire? What are the first role they should get first?
The first hire should be an experienced data scientist, not necessarily a senior data scientist or a head of data science, that sort of fancy title, but at least they should hire somebody who has experience in data science and willing to lead the data science team in the company so that they can bring the company forward using data. So this is the number one hire that every company should aim for.
So it's funny because we always talk about students or individuals going for companies. Now this time it's the other way around,
Correct.
right? So for companies,
Supply
right,
and demand.
what kind of skills should they look for in a candidate?
So for remember we talked about generalists versus specialists, right?
Yeah.
So for company, if you're looking to hire your first data science personnel, you should aim for a generalist. So this person should be able to collect data, should be able to set up your database, should be able to analyze data, build some basic models, algorithms, and then present it in the dashboard form and give you some explanations and insights. This should be a very minimum requirement. It sounds a lot, but actually it's just what a generalist should know. And it shouldn't be somebody like specialized in deep learning or specialized in computer vision. It is not going to be helpful for a company who is just starting to use data science.
I think that makes sense because in terms of marketing, let's put it back to marketing, right?
Yeah.
In terms of marketing, there's a lot of channels of marketing. And if you hire like SEO specialists or maybe Facebook specialist, then this person is going to be biased towards, Facebook is the only way to get leads, it's the only way to get customers, and then forget all the other possible channels of marketing. So it's the same also in data science teams, right? So let's just say I'm a company now beginning to go into a bigger team right now, right? Now, what are some roles that I should look out for after that generalist person?
Okay, so after you have hired a generalist, your first data scientist, right? Then you should look at the nature of your business to decide where you want to go. So are you a B2B business or are you a B2C business? A B2C business, you should look for somebody like a data analyst who are experienced in customer relations, who are experienced in those, depends on your channels, like you said, right? If you are more into social media, then you should look for somebody who are data analyst and also has experience in web analytics. And if you are looking for those B2B companies, then maybe you should look for somebody who has data science experience, data analytics experience, and also some finance background. Because in B2B projects, finance, procurement, and those sort of other compliance, governance stuff maybe come in place before your others like machine learning projects or AI application even.
So when we have these teams in place or the first hire in place, what is the first usual thing that they should tackle first within the company based on your experience that you have seen?
Okay, now I'm going to give you a true answer, right? A lot of people, they will give you all sort of things, big data, set up a data lake, whatever.
All the cool stuff.
Yeah, all the cool stuff, all the buzzword, right? No, the first thing first is make sure you have all the data in place, right? We handle a lot of clients projects for our students and for our external clients as well. But the first thing is make sure all the data are in place. You get the data sources right, know who owns the data, are those data clean, and these are not fancy jobs. That means it's not something that you tell people they'll be excited, wow, you do this. But this is actually the most important one. If you don't know where are your data, what are your data, then there's no point to take it to the next level, because as you move forward with your data science project, you realize that a lot of data are missing, or the behind the scene is actually very messy, or the data is not up to date, and you still have to take a step or maybe a few steps back to relook at your entire data. So I would say the first thing is to make sure that you have good access to the data and those data sources are true and up to date.
Okay. Now, I read a research and also a prediction by Gartner,
Okay,
right?
yep.
And they predict that in the year of 2022, which is this year, I can't remember the exact number, but it's like a very high number of 87% of machine learning projects will fail,
Yep.
right? Based on, because people are so obsessed into, coming out with the coding, the algorithms, but not actually focusing on the business goals, right? So in your experience, what is the mistakes to avoid when it comes to commissioning a data team to work on the business or the company's data?
I think it's just overpromise. A lot of people, when they build their models, they are not using real world data, right? They're using some toy data set, they're using some tutorial academics data set. So these data are very clean, they're very polished, and they have not been put into production. So they are not tested vigorously under different type of situations. And give you a very simple example, right? Any data that you have collected that you collected before COVID is going to be invalid, because your user behavior, your consumer behavior, your thought process, whatever, right? It's going to be so different before and after COVID. Yeah. So that's something that I can tell you straight away, is that those people, they did not take into consideration, or they did not expect the unexpected, and that's why the machine learning projects will fail. And remember, another study also says that 40% of those companies that claim that they have AI, they actually do not use any AI. Yeah. So these two things, I think the numbers tally, and yeah.
I think that's a very good point. Data has the data that they use to train has to always be renewed.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Because trends change, behaviors change depending on the
people change.
Yeah, people change, and there's a lot of market forces at play.
Yeah.
If you are a manager or a boss, watching this episode, now should bosses and manager learn data science as well? I mean, obviously they have to know something before they can hire a team and know exactly what they're doing, right? So what is your take on that?
Yeah, so for bosses and managers, you should definitely learn data science at least on the up to the working level, so that you know what sort of projects are possible, what sort of projects are doable, what sort of resources that you need to allocate to your team members when you want them to execute some data projects. And always remember, start small. You can be very ambitious. I'm not saying that you cannot dream big, but when you come to the implementations or the testing of the project, it has to be that small that you can easily test the accuracy, you can always test the ROI, you can set some KPIs around it, whatever you like to call it. But make sure that this small project succeed first, then you scale it up. They are not to start with a big projects, and then a lot of the mistake where we talk about like implementing a data science project in a company, they start with involving all the stakeholders, all the managers in the company, from HR, finance, sales, all come inside the meeting, and then it makes it sound like a big project, but end up, because you have too many expectations from different stakeholders that they need to manage. So I think for managers, right, all you have to do is to make sure that you know what is doable, what is not doable, and a realistic timeline, so that you know how to manage your team members.
In the previous content that you created and shared, you shared a very good point, where the beauty of our technology that we have today, also in data science, is that you don't need a complete understanding of it to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Then the example you shared was driving a car.
Yeah.
If we had to really understand how engines work, pistons work, how the wheels turn, then we wouldn't be able to drive cars.
Correct.
Right? Or even use mobile phones, or even buy Bitcoin, right? Because you don't need a complete understanding of it.
Yeah, how many people understand Bitcoin before they bought
but you can buy Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
You can use it, right?
Yes, exactly.
So in terms of learning data science, do you think that is the number one reason people are holding themselves back from learning it, because they think that they have to have like a whole complete understanding of data science before they can actually do it?
Yeah, that's one thing. And another thing is, we hear from the students is that when they go to Google, they look for YouTube tutorials or whatever. People will, in order to make them look smart, they will say, okay, this is what data scientists need to know, and then okay, we show them the picture, right? And this is the roadmap, and that looks like a lot. But the fact is, you don't have to know everything. I mean, you need to know the existence. Like if we use the car as an example, of course, I know that there's an engine, there's a brake system, there's a gear systems, and all sort of ignition, whatever that's behind the scene. But you don't really have to know the theory behind in order to use it. You know how to use a car to get yourself safely from point A to point B. That is the main purpose. Yeah. So a lot of people, when they get turned off, because that is number one. Number two is they don't know where to start. Because if you drive a car, you know that you just need to get onto the driver's seat and start the engine. You roughly know the process. But data science, you don't know. Some people, they went to this conference, they say, oh, you need to start from machine learning because AI is the future. And then they go to another conference which talks about dashboard. Then they say, oh, every company should start from a dashboard. If you did not build a dashboard, then you cannot start a data science team. So there are a lot of things like that. We don't have a single version of answers. And I think the next question that, of course, you guys are going to ask me is that, so where should I start? So start from a point that has direct impact to your business and you are comfortable. Yeah, it doesn't matter. If you think that unstructured data, text data is where your company has access to and it's going to give you the fastest ROI, biggest ROI, then start with that. Yeah, if you think that a dashboard is something that your company needed right now because you don't have a holistic view of the health of your business, go ahead and implement a dashboard.
Okay, and this is my last question of today for this episode. We talk a lot about hiring, companies hiring new recruits for their company, right? And maybe you want to hire some people. Now, and we also know that the value comes in training your own employees to be data skilled, right? And I think one of the benefits of doing that is that they have domain knowledge in the particular industry that they have been working on for a long time. Now, what is your opinion on that, and what is your thoughts on training the current employees to be data skilled, to become data capable?
My answer is always the same. Training your existing employees who already have domain knowledge is a lot easier, a lot cost effective than bringing somebody who say that they are data scientists, but they are not from your industry, and then put it in your company. Because to gain knowledge and experience in an industry, this is something that cannot be fast tracked. If it takes 3 years to be well versed in oil and gas industry, it takes 3 years. There's no way that you can short circuit this process. And let's say like in marketing, if it takes 2 years to practice copywriting, to know how to write a good highly converting sales page, and then to create good landing page, and then it takes that amount of time. Yeah, so I always recommend companies send your current employees, your staff for training.
So there you go. And we are talking to companies in this episode. So I hope you find that enjoyable and also insightful. If you have questions, put them down in the comment section down below. And Dr. Lau, anything else you'd like to add before we end this episode?
And a lot of times when a company is thinking to hire people, right, the next question they have in mind is, what are the tools? Right?
Tools,
how much money that I need to spend on top of this? They will think like, oh, a lot of question marks. How much money that am I going to buy new software? Am I going to buy new computers?
What's the investment in
What's the other investments on top of the people that they hire? So I'm going to tell you this secret here. You don't have to spend any money when it comes to tooling, especially at the beginning of your data science team. A lot of tools that we use today are open source, industry grade. Whether you talk about data sets, you talk about virtual machines, you talk about the lab environment, all these simulations, they are all freely available and they are open source. So you don't have to worry about the licensing right now or in the future. So this is my final comment for this episode. Don't worry about that. Focus on hire the right people, then we'll figure out the rest later.
So people first, above tools and software.
Always. Yeah.
All right. So there you go. If you have other comments and questions, put them down in the comment section down below. We'd love to see them and also hear from you. And until next time, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.